The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We are coming to you
advice and opinions
live
expressed
from
by
the
the
Warner
host of
Center in
Autism
Woodland
Live.
Hills, California. We continue to be plagued like everything under the sun, but we're here and that's what matters. And really, honestly, I think that's my big message for today is show up. Show up. Show up for yourself, show up for your kids. We're going to be talking about that today. And so we're here, we're showing up regardless of whatever. So we're going to be with you live for the next hour talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective so that however you're joining this big, beautiful community and this big, beautiful spectrum, you might be the individual who is on the autism spectrum, right? Welcome. We want you here especially, right? But we also want to welcome the people who love you and who are helping you to get to the things that you want to. Your whole team, that what might be your parents, it might be your spouse, it might be your kids, it might be the therapists or the teachers, right? We want everybody who's a part of this community who wants the same thing to help individuals on the autism spectrum to be able to achieve what is important to them and the maximum of what is important to them, right? Isn't that the deal? So that's why we're here. We can disagree on everything else, but we can agree on that, right? Excuse me. So thrilled to be here with you on this Thursday, and we want to interact with you. So Traven's going to show you a bunch of different ways that you can interact. They include ways to watch the show, ways to talk with us, so on and so forth, right? So while he's doing that, I want to remind you, and he's got it right there, our homepage is autism-live.com. Go there, check out all the videos that we have, but you can also interact with us there on the live chat, which is down at the bottom of the page. If you click on the chat button, it opens up. You can type something in there, hit enter, and it shows up here on my screen. So I can talk with you about that in almost real time. It has a couple of minute lag, but also with our experts that are here on the show. And everything that we do, we have worked really hard to be able to bring it to you in free formats. So we are a download on iTunes, but it's free to you because our job here, job number one, is to give you information and inspiration to let you know that the things that you want, we want to let you know the information about what's already there and to provide you the inspiration to go find it. And when it isn't there, when you go to find it, to perhaps be the one that creates it, right? Because we've had a lot of people on the show who said, you know, I was looking for X, Y, and Z and it was not there, so I decided to make it myself. Well, I have nothing but respect for that because sometimes I'll be honest with you, I really wanted, when my son was diagnosed with autism, I wanted to be able to go onto a page and have somebody explain to me what was going on. I wanted to see experts, and I needed it at 2 o'clock in the morning when I could get him to sleep, right? And it was not there. And years ago when somebody asked me first, did I want to host a radio show about autism? And I was like, I don't know anything about hosting a radio show. I know nothing about that, but I know that if I say no to this, then I can't complain anymore that this thing isn't there at 2 o'clock in the morning when I needed it. So, you know, that became a radio show called Everyday Autism Miracles, which the archives are there. You can go and listen to that. But eventually that led to me coming here and doing Autism Live. So, and there are other shows about autism, and we support those too, because sometimes it takes a million different ways for everybody to get the word and the message, and I think that's super important. So anyway, enough of that spiel. So write into us in whatever way and watch us in whatever way. And you know what? If you can't access the information, please let us know and we will find you a way. right? Because I'm committed. If you have an internet connection, I'm committed to finding a way to get the information to you in a free format. If you don't have an internet connection, that becomes a problem. But there's a book you can get that deals with a lot of the same things that we deal with here. So, wonderful to be here with you. We've got a wonderful show planned for you. We're about to have a guest. Our autism expert will be with us in just a couple of minutes answering questions that you guys have sent in. But it's Thursday, and so on Thursday we like to start the show with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym that's currently sinking our ship. We try to figure out what in the hey nani nani are the experts talking about. We give you the actual definition because I enjoy poking fun at it, and otherwise it's pretty useless a lot of the time, right? And then we give you a working definition, which often makes the experts' heads spin. Although, can I tell you, more and more of them write to me every day and tell me how much they love the jargon and how they're using it at colleges and universities around the country. What? That's so exciting to me. Okay, but the point is that we need to make friends with these terms. And I know I was one of those people, I was like, no, not going to do it. Just explain to me what it means. And I found that took too long. And it ate up the time that I had with the expert, which was expensive. Not only out of my pocket, but it was expensive because it was time wasted with my son. So we want to make friends with the jargon terms, but we don't want to get overwhelmed by them. That's the whole reason why we do this. So today's term, and it's one that we don't do often enough here, I find, but the word is prosody. Okay, so like a lot of the terms that we see in psychology and in dealing with ABA, there's a term that has other meaning to us in the rest of our lives, right? And for me, prosody was always a big word because I'm big on prosody. It's like, okay, you're not the friend who calls me back on a regular basis. Okay, that's fine because now I know that's about you. You're not somebody who returns phone calls. But when I'm, not returning your phone call, you can't get upset with me about it because that's prosody. It's like equal and even. That's what it means outside of the field of ABA, but inside the field of ABA, it has something entirely different. So let's take a look at what the actual definition for prosody is. Prosody is the use of intonation and vocal stress to convey information about the structure and meaning of an utterance. What? Wait, give it back to us for a second, Traven. Let's read that again. What? It's the use of intonation and vocal stress to convey information about the structure and meaning of an utterance. I feel like somebody tried deliberately to make that convoluted. Is it just me? All right, now let's go to the working definition here to see what are we talking about. It's the use of pitch, loudness, tempo, and rhythm in speech so that the listener can understand what is being said. Okay, do you know who Ben Stein is? Ben Stein is an actor, and he was made famous by the, what's the name of the movie where the kid takes the day off? I can't think of it. Yes, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Thank you, Traven. So Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he's the teacher who's like reading the attendance, and he goes, Bueller, 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 no change in pitch, intonation, nothing, just deadpan, right? And he's sort of famous for that in life. And then he went on to host a game show because he just has this very flat tone. And he'll go, you did that? And it can be really funny. It can be hilarious as a punchline to something. But don't we all know somebody in our life who's like that they go, I love it, right? And then you're like, are they being sarcastic or do they really love it? Because when you love something, did you hear how my pitch just changed? I love it, right? I'm using tempo, I'm changing the intonation of my voice, the pitch, the volume, the speed, everything to say, I love that. I'm emphasizing the love, right? And then everybody knows, oh, she really likes that, right? But I had a student that I did something with her and she was like, this was great. And I said to her, are you making fun of me? Are you being sarcastic? And she was like, what? It's great. And I was like, does she mean that to the people? And they were like, yeah, that's just how she talks, right? Okay, that's what we're talking about. When people can get confused and miss the meaning of what you're saying because you're saying it in a way that's flat, or there are people who only ever say things like this, and they're like, I'm totally calm right now. And you're like, I don't think you're calm. You're yelling at me. And they're like, what are you talking about? This is the way right? So we use our voices to, and it's not just the words that we say, it's how we say it. How many times have you ever been mad at somebody and they go, I'm sorry? And you go, that didn't sound like sorry to me, but they said the words. They said, I'm sorry, but you didn't believe it because the tone did not match what they were saying. Sometimes for people who are developing language at a different speed or at a different time in their lives, we can have a prosody problem. And so even though we have the diction is there enough to understand what's being said, although sometimes that's a problem for our kiddos, but imagine that the diction is there, you worked on all of that, right? But they're still not being understood because they're not varying what they're saying. So prosody is when we teach them how to do that. And we can teach this in lots of different ways. There are lessons. So if there's somebody that you love in your life that's on the spectrum, that they're seeing that, because if you're asking for things in life and you're like, I would like more, please, and people aren't understanding what you're saying, it's still a problem, right? Because if I'm asking you to give me more and you don't give it to me, then I got to find another way to get my needs met, right? And it's frustrating. So prosody and teaching prosody can help people to get what they need. That's really what it's about. We're not trying to do a one-size-fits-all because obviously, there's people like Ben Stein who've made a career out of this, right? But I'm sure that Ben Stein, there are times in his life, if he's saying, there's a fire, let's get out of here, will want to be able to have the ability to say it in such a way that people know, oh my gosh, it's an emergency, right? Instead of saying, fire, please leave, right? Okay, so I beat that dead horse, but that's what prosody is. Okay, so moving on to our question of the day. We always ask a question for you guys, and our question today, because we're in the middle of the month of October now, is what's your favorite scary movie? One of the things that somebody was talking to me the other day, they were like, rituals around holidays that they can and cannot do with their children. And I said, well, rather than being upset about all of it, because no matter who your child was, I have friends who have completely neurotypical children who are always in the average on everything, and they still are like, well, my kid doesn't want to do this with me. It's not as important to them. And even, everyone, there's phases where, you have to deal with the friend who said to me 3 years ago, oh, my child is a teenager now and doesn't want to spend Halloween with me, and I don't know what to do about that, right? So, we were always going to have to deal with our expectation of what happens on the holidays is one thing and our kids is another, right? But when our kiddos are on the autism spectrum, it can feel harder, right? Because when they're really little, we still have a hard time getting them to do the things that we want them to do. So I was saying to that friend, I was like, so what's the biggest, most important thing for you to make it feel like it's Halloween? And I said, is it the night of or is it the lead up to? And they said, no, it's the lead up to that, I want to sit and I want to watch scary movies with my kid, but my kid just isn't into them. And I was saying, well, okay, but there's lots of different types of scary movies. And have you looked at that? Like, certainly you're not going to show like Friday the 13th to a 3-year-old, right? That's not going to happen. But you can certainly watch The Ghost and Mr. Chicken with them. And it led us into a conversation of, oh, right, there are lots of different types of scary movies, and there's lots of different ways to celebrate a holiday season of something. So we're like, well, let's ask around. What's everybody's favorite scary movie? And I'm not big into scary movies. So, yeah, I think The Ghost of Mr. Chicken is probably my favorite scary movie of all time. Because I will watch that again and again and again. And that, to me, feels like the Halloween season and childhood to me. But what's yours? Write in and tell us. We'd really like to know. And maybe it will help somebody to know what to watch with their kiddo, right? All right. We always have a topic of the week. And this week, our topic has been when things get worse before they get better. And this is a real thing. It's a real thing in life, but it's certainly a real thing in ABA, especially for people who have the person that they care about on the spectrum is engaging in challenging behavior. We talked earlier this week, our jargon for the day was about extinction. And when we do an extinction procedure, which is when we are trying to literally extinguish the connection between reinforcement and the challenging behavior. We're trying to, you know how they say with a fire, you try to starve it from the oxygen? So whatever the reason was that the person was doing the challenging behavior, we want to make sure that we want to make sure that, first of all, that they get that need met some other way. That's super important. Let's never leave that out. But we want to make sure that they don't get what is the blood supply, the reinforcer that's making this continue to happen the way that it is. So if the person is spitting in people's faces, right? And we look at it and we go, what's the paycheck for that? Well, you know, for some kiddos, it might be the right? The actual motion of it, like the way it feels, you know, that's the thing. For others, it might be the attention that they get after they do it, because everybody moves and there's shouting and yelling after you spit in somebody's face, right? For other people, it could be the way the light shines on the spit as it's going across, right? We need to know what the paycheck is. If you're going to cut off the blood supply, you got to know what blood supply it is. And assuming doesn't get it done, right? But so if we find that they're doing it for attention, and that's really why they're doing it, and if they don't get attention, then it doesn't happen, then we want to choke the attention. That's what we want to do. But what we will find is it will get worse before it gets better. And this is the hardest part, I think, for caregivers, because this is hard to begin with, right? If somebody is spitting in your face, right? And the more it happens, the more upset you get. And so now they spit in your face, and what you want to do is go, no. And then whatever your punishment consequence strategy is, whether it's that, you know, they have to go to their room or they get their iPad taken away, like, isn't that your knee-jerk reaction? You want to be like, give that to me. You don't get to have that. That is, you don't treat me that way, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? But that's attention. So in this particular instance, if we find that attention is the thing and we're going to starve off the attention, we want to do a non-reaction. And look, I've seen therapists, they have their clipboard with them, right? And if they're people, right? You know, and somebody spits at them, a lot of times they will take and they will make notes, whatever, but they will put so that the reaction can't be seen. We can do that as parents. We can, you know, do this, but there's like no other reaction to it. Oh, that's so hard. And then when they spit again and they try to pull your hand away to spit, because it's like, hey, this is the thing I wanted and you're not giving it to me. So I'm going to try. It's very hard. It's very hard to sit with it and just like hold, you know, this forward motion of, I'm not going to give this a reaction. But if you can, it's the keys to the kingdom, because then it takes a certain amount of time, right? But then the kid goes, oh, I'm not getting attention this way. And then they will try to get your attention another way. And if we have taught them appropriately ways to get attention before we put this into motion, we would have, you know, gone through a lot of teaching of saying, you know, for a nonverbal child to pat you on the shoulder to get your attention, for a verbal child to say, excuse me, right? Or to just say mom or dad or whatever. It's crazy how effective it is, because in that moment when they go, oh, I'm not getting what I want, then all of a sudden they'll be like, excuse me. And then you give them attention. Go, yes, what can I do for you? As if nothing happened. And they just spat on you and your hand 20 times. It's hard. But the point of it gets worse before it gets better is that it does eventually get better. That's the key to remember. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Anyway, I went too long on that. Okay, so we've got a big show for you today. We've got a wonderful guest, an expert who's going to be with us. I'm going to slaughter her name again, Romalea Manukal. Let's say that, and then she's going to tell me how to really say it. Is going to be with us in just a few minutes, and then later on we're going to have time for questions from you guys and a mindfulness moment. So, and maybe even autism in the classroom if we play our cards right. So, stick with us. Stay where you are. We'll be right back after these messages.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become. Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult...
Welcome back to Autism Live. Joining us right now on the phone is Romalea Manukal. How did I do? Did I get it right?
That was fantastic, Shannon.
Fabulous.
Great.
But everybody calls you Leia.
Yeah.
As in like Princess Leia, the best. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. And so Romalea, Leia, tell us what your role is at CARD.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a clinical manager. I am based out of the Sterling, Virginia Center, and I support various offices in Northern Virginia and in Maryland. My primary role is to ensure the quality of treatment of all of our kids in those centers. So I really collaborate with supervisors and with therapists to make sure they're implementing the programs and creating treatment plans that are effective, that are of high quality, and that are tailored for each of your kids out there.
Spectacular. And we're so glad that you're here with us, and thank you so much for answering our questions today. So the first question that I have for you is kind of open-ended, but how do I get my child to stay in bed?
Yeah, such a great question. So the first thing I always advise our parents is to really look at the root cause, or what we call looking at the function of the behavior. I would highly advise too, if you have a behavioral team that you work with, to work with the BCBA and have them really tailor a plan that's individualized for your specific child, So looking at what the function is, it'll help you find like what that root cause. So if it's attention or escaping for some reason, they just want to spend some time with you, or they don't like their bed, you can kind of figure out what course of action to take. But in general, depending on what that is, you can like develop different rules for your child. Like I've used various visuals, like giving them like a time or like a number visual that's paired with their clock, and saying like if they're when this number shows up, then you can come out of your room and then say hi to mom. You can also have them earn tokens for staying in bed and exchanging that in the morning. I think the biggest take-home point that I would advise parents for this type of situation is looking at something that your child values a lot, that is meaningful to them, that they would love, 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 and using that to increase time in bed. So anything you want to see increase, any behavior where whether it's staying in bed or anything else, you want to pair that with something that they really, really love or really like to increase the occurrence of that behavior. And that should be able to just shift any type of behavior that you want to see increase, is really pairing it with something that they love and enjoy.
You know what I particularly loved about that answer is that as parents, we ask the question, how do I get my child to stay in bed? But really what we're thinking about is, how do I get my child to not get out of bed? But I love that you're looking at it and going, let's increase the time in bed, and that puts it in a whole other ballpark. But I love also that it's not a one size fits all. You got to know why they're getting out of the bed, because whatever you do will be based on that. So I love that you said go back and talk to your team if at all possible. So great answer. Moving on to the next question. How many hours of ABA a week should my high functioning teenager, I believe is what it was before, get? But we don't have that on the page, so I don't know. Just high functioning child with autism get.
Oh, love this question. So you really want to focus on, well, what we do here at CARD, let's do that, is an individualized treatment plan. So it's so important to participate in your intake. That would give us as your clinicians the opportunity to look at where are those areas of need. So I wish I can tell you an exact number for your teenager, but without really looking about what he or she needs, that number is really going to fluctuate, right? So we would, based on that intake, we would be able to identify like what are your priorities? What is it that you're seeing at home, and what is happening at school? What's happening with peers? So we would take all of that information and develop a very individualized treatment plan for your teenager, and that would really drive the recommendation that we would provide you. So as much as I could, wish I could give you an exact number, it would really be tailored to your individual teenager, and that's really going to come from a thorough intake evaluation with him or her.
Yeah, because we wish that it was one size fits all, but it's not. So wonderful, wonderful advice. Okay, the last one. What can I do on a play date to help my child make and keep friends?
Oh, it's so great. And I will tell you this, that it's not just going to come from one play date. This is going to be a responsibility for you, like as a parent, and if you're working with a behavioral team, it's their responsibility as well to really build a relationship with these peers and those families, right? So building those relationships really helps, facilitate that ongoing opportunity for several play dates. So it's not just going to happen with just one. So it's really also useful to have your behavioral technician be present for those play dates, so then they can facilitate the play with your child and the peer. And another really important thing to look at is reinforcement. So you want this interaction, or these several interactions, to be positive. You want your child to really get something that they value out of it. Aside from just the play interaction, you want to pair it with something that they enjoy. And also for that peer, make that interaction really pleasant for them, whether it's, they end the play date with like a snack that they both really enjoy and like, or they get to play like a game that they don't get to typically play, like a quick video game after. You want to make sure that interaction is positive for the both of them and they both get to earn something that they value. Like I said before, lots of reinforcement. Anything you want to build and increase, there's going to be something paired with it that your child really enjoys. My best advice is really build that relationship. The more opportunities you have, the more you can get that down on a schedule and reoccurring, the more opportunities your child has to build those relationships as well.
Wonderful, wonderful sage advice from one so young. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. This was great.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on.
Well, we're thrilled to have you, and we'll have you back again soon, okay?
Sounds good. Have a great day, everyone.
And say hi to everybody there to us on the East Coast.
I will.
All right.
Thank you.
You take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. I just love it when, and I don't, if you guys are with us on a regular Thursday, it's just so fun to talk to all these people, and every week it's somebody different, and yet a lot of the messages completely in alignment and the same thing, and it, because it works. That's why. So thrilling. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, somebody has written in on Facebook. Chrissy has said, I'm in Vermont. There's literally no help for my high-functioning 21-year-old son. Please help me. Chrissy, we're going to start to map something out right when we come back from this message, so don't go away. Stick with us.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts. We hear questions all the time, and we want to give you the answers that help make your journey in autism easier and more navigatable. Less than a year ago, we interviewed the top 100 doctors in the United States working with children on the spectrum, and we asked them a question in the cloak of secrecy. What are the top 3 mistakes parents living with autism do? Number 1, and the one that makes me laugh the most, is when they use their physician as a marriage and family therapist. 1, the doctors told me it made them uncomfortable, and 2, they were highly unqualified to provide that type of advice. So the night before your physician appointment with your MAPS doctor, get together with your spouse, significant other, and write out the list of the targets and the agenda that you want to cover at the physician's appointment. Get in sync. Then you'll be definitely spending less time and not making that doctor so uncomfortable. Second thing that was the most common mistakes parents living with autism make is they want to go too fast. And really, you want to pace yourself in the autism journey. We all know that we want to get our kid to be the best they can be and hopefully recover from autism. And what a lot of the doctors have told me is that you want to really pace yourself. 1, to let the labs be your guide, and 2, work with your physician on the prioritization and the delivery of the different medical interventions. The third most common mistake they felt families made was giving up too soon. And what you need to know is they're invested, they're looking at wanting to get the best from your child. But I tell you that when I got that and consolidated the 100 interviews with these physicians, most of the doctors who brought that up had tears in their eyes. They want you to know that they're in the fight with you, and they want you to know that hope is really real. It may take hard work and it may take time, but to not give up and to stay in the game. So let TACA help you. We'll have some more TACA facts for you in the future, real questions and real answers for the autism journey.
Okay, so that was Lisa Ackerman that you just saw, and she's the founder of TACA, which is the Autism Community in Action. And they are doing their fall conference starting tomorrow. She doesn't even know this, but I'm going to be there in the morning because their keynote tomorrow is Kobe Bird. And so I'm hiking it down there to Orange County to be there. I don't think that I have an opportunity to do anything live from there, but I'll take my iPad with me so that if I do have an opportunity to do something live, I will. But do you guys know who Kobe Bird is? He's the most fabulous thing. Well, I mean, my son's the most fabulous thing, right? We all think that, right? But he's like family to me now. He is the 17-year-old actor who was first featured playing a boy with autism on Speechless. Then he was a boy with autism on The Good Doctor. And then starting in January, he's going to be featured as a regular on a new show that's happening on Netflix that's called Lock and Key. He's a wonderful, kind-hearted, sweet, and so talented, such a singer and an actor. He's a triple threat, right? So he's the keynote, 17 years old and on the spectrum, and he's the keynote for TACA. I mean, I got to be there to see this. That's an hour-long talk. I would be shaking in my shoes, and I'm not 17 and I'm not on the spectrum, but so I can't wait to see that. So if you're in the neighborhood and are able to get yourself down to TACA tomorrow, and they're all weekend long, their keynote on Saturday is Rodney Peete. Come on, people. Does it get better than this? It does not. So check that out. I know that they still have tickets, and I will be there in the morning, and you can come by and say hi to me. But before we went to break, I just had teased that we were going to come back and talk with Chrissy, who on Facebook has written in and said, I'm in Vermont. There's literally no help for my high-functioning 21-year-old son. Please help me. Okay, so there are places in the world where there still is no support. And, you know, I said earlier that if you have an internet connection, then I know that we have ways that we can help and support you. So I want to let you know that there are a couple of things that are there now that weren't there even a year ago. So we play a commercial often on the show that's for Skills Living. So years ago, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders began a project, and I'm talking years ago. They began a project to be able to take all the things that they had learned over the years, because this next year, they will have been an ABA provider for 30 years. So after they'd been at it like 10 years, they said, we should take everything that we've learned in 10 years and put it together so that other people could use it. And that began a 10-year project that created skills. And all of CARD's curriculum for treating kids that are between the ages of 3 and skills that emerge by the time of 8. So it's really about 15-year-old. Those lessons are in skills. And very quickly, though, CARD had started to work with older kiddos and with adults, and everybody was like, where's the curriculum for that? Well, it's new and it's out, but it's called Skills Living. And everything that you might need to teach anyone, I'm not even just talking about on the spectrum. If there's an adult in your life that is missing a skill, on the spectrum, not on the spectrum, it's all there. Everything. And I know that's crazy to think of how big it is, but it's all there. So Skills Living is there. I would encourage you, first of all, to take the assessment. And here's why. Because sometimes we look at our kids and we're like, well, I know that they're successful at this, but I think they should be successful at this and they're not, and I don't know why. And it's not because, you're not brilliant and intelligent, you're just very close to it. And sometimes it's hard to see because the skill that they're missing, the thing that you can identify, you can't identify that skill is tied to 13 things before that. And that's, that would take a whole lot of time and effort to know that. So that's what I love about Skills Living, is that you have thousands of years of experience from BCBAs packed into that, of things that they have learned over the years, not just sitting in a seat at a university, right? These are experiential things that they've learned. Oh, well, the precursor for this is this, and the precursor for that is this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and then you get back to the skill that's missing. So, oh, look, Traven, you're so good. So there's the number you can call for Skills Living, or just go on there and ask for a free trial. So the thing about skills is that skills is overwhelming for people because it's 8 curricula areas and you go, I don't know where to start, right? And Skills Living is 16 curricula areas. So it's all there, but that would be like walking into the library and saying, I'm going to read every book here. You don't need to read every book here. You don't have enough time to read every book here. What do you want to know about? What do you want to experience? Let's find you the library book, and maybe we find a class of library books and go, here's the number, here's the shelf that you need to look at, right? So the assessment helps you to figure out which shelf you're looking at. It will say when you're done with the assessment, and it takes a while to do the assessment, I gotta say, but when you're done with the assessment, it gives you you can pick how you want the graph, but you can look at it and go, okay, well, my child has skills that are above appropriate here, and I know we're talking about an adult, excuse me, that your adult child, he's above where he needs to be here, but he's got a deficit here. And, one of the things we do, which is good teaching, is we always play to strengths and we shore up weaknesses, right? Always we play. So if we see that your child has strong expressive, but his receptive language is very low, we're going to use the fact that he has strong expressive to teach him how to have more receptive. And we have ways of doing that. And the lessons are then there. But even if you never get to the lessons on Skills Living, taking the assessment will show you, what do I need to be working on here with my child? So then from there, we can start a targeted program. Now you could then go to the lessons and keep doing Skills Living and work on some of the things there. But you may go, oh no, the things that I see that I need to work on, I want to target it this way, that way. But a lot of times parents will be like, well, I'm going to start a group for my child, but they don't even know where or what to start it with. So let's say, for instance, that you take the assessment and you look at it, and the example that I gave before, strong expressive, not so good in the receptive, and maybe it shows that he is brilliant at building and way ahead at building skills, but that his social skills are, not where they need to be. He's got some things, but, knowing how to identify the emotions on other people's faces is really, really difficult for him. So we would take all of this knowledge and we would go, all right, let's start a club. Let's start an organization, and we'll find in the community, maybe we'll put up a couple of signs and say that he is really interested in, it could, if he's a builder, it could be robotics, it could be Legos, it could be, and he could put a thing saying adult Lego club, right? And you might only get 3 people. Guess what? You only need 3 people. Right? And maybe you or he goes to the public library and says, can we have a room here to do an adult Lego club? And usually public libraries will be helpful for these kinds of things. But if not, maybe you find another place for people to meet. But I think you'll find yourself at least semi-successful at the public library. So now you've got 3 people coming to this Lego club, and I'm making all of this up, and I don't know this individual, but I'm just saying these are the kinds of things that are possible that I've seen other parents do. So it's something that he's really excited about and that he wants to do, and we want to find like-minded people, right? And when we find like-minded people, they might be on the spectrum too, they may not be, right? So we're there like-minded, and we're gonna give him separate from the group some things to work on. So for instance, if he has trouble realizing what people's facial expressions are, at some point, because he's good at expressive, we're gonna teach him how to be able to say to the other people in the room, I'm working on learning people's facial expressions. So your face right now looks to me like you're angry with me, but is that what you're feeling? And hopefully that person will be able to respond back. But we would teach them the things to do outside the group so that they can put them into play in the group. Does that make sense? It's so hard when it's not already there for you. But I have to tell you that has been so many people's stories. And all of the things that we feature here on the show when we go, oh, we're going to do a segment about fantastic friends. Well, that came about because a young woman, her teen brother, they were in high school together and she had friends, but her brother didn't have friends. And she said, this isn't going to work for me. So what am I going to create? And she created a group that took all of her friends and, a group of kids that were on the spectrum, including her brother, and paired them together, and they have proms together and this other stuff. It's a really great uplifting thing. But my point is, it didn't exist. When she went looking for it, it didn't exist. So it's hard. And I'm going to, say to you, you can do it. Si se puede. That's what we always say here on the show. You can do it, but we want it to work, right? So we want it to be targeted. That's why things start with the skills living assessment. But also ask yourself, what is my adult on the spectrum love? How can I feed that passion? How can I get a group going? Or is there a group that I can take him to where other people feel this way? And I think if you go, you will find there will be other people on the spectrum, but there will be other people not on the spectrum too. So it becomes about feeding the passion. Now, if the thing that they seem to be excited about is a solitary thing, and you can be writing into me, Chrissy, if you're still with us, and tell me if I'm way, 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 way off the mark. But if they're into something that seems to be solitary, there are ways to find out how to do it as a group. For instance, when my son first got into Minecraft, I was like, well, that's it. Now we're never going to get to anything social. And yet it was the exact opposite. It was the thing that keyed him into social because I found at the public library that they had a Minecraft group that they would meet once a week on a Friday afternoon, and the kids would all come in, and it was for kids, let me be clear, but there was a group leader for it. And by the way, it was not for autism. It was just for the kids in the community. They would sign up to do it. They had a room full of computers, and the group leader had a task for them to go on as a group inside of a Minecraft server. Well, then all of a sudden my son was like, there's different servers. Can I create my own server? And then he found out about there are these LAN parties that teenagers and adults do where everybody brings their computer, and it's not Minecraft, but they bring their computer to a location together and they play a game together in the room with each other and have a party. Now, you do have to do a lot of vetting because you want to make sure that it's the kind of party and the kind of people that you want your adult on the spectrum to be exposed to, but those things exist. So even if it's something that's solitary, give yourself permission to think, okay, if there were going to be something perfect for my kiddo, what would it look like? And really take some time to think about it, then look to see if that exists, and if it doesn't, is there a way that you can make that happen for your child, even in a small while? And when I say child, I know it's your adult, but he's still your child. Anyway, so write and tell me if that helps you at all. All right, we are going to take a break. We're going to come back. If you guys have more questions where you want my opinion, let's not forget that I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody who's been here with you for a while and cares deeply, right? But write in your questions now. We're going to go to break and we're going to come back. If not, we'll go on to our mindfulness moment. Stick with us.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman back with Talk of Facts. Questions, real life questions and answers for the autism journey. Oh, are you ready for this one? Talk to me about puberty. So what I would recommend is first and foremost is the kids that have done the therapeutics, the medical, and the dietary allergen removal interventions tend to have an easier time at puberty. Seizures are really common for children on the spectrum, more than neurotypical populations, and they're especially most common right at or about puberty time. So it's extremely important, even if you have a 10-year-old, that you've already done an EEG, that you consider before they go through puberty to get a second EEG done. Just because you have one clean EEG with no abnormal brain activity or seizure activity, you need to do another one prior to puberty. That's one of the most common calls we get with teens on the spectrum, is they are often experiencing a seizure for what their family thinks is the first time. And the third thing is you're gonna have a teenager, so you're really gonna have to kick it up a notch on those life skills, social skills, and getting your kid ready to be that teenager they need to be. So if you're doing that baby thing, and I know you are, where you're maybe making their lunches or helping them with laundry, we need to start bouncing some chores over to those kids. And we also need to increase social environments where they can be successful. So think about it. We've got 3 really important things that we need to look at. Puberty is a very serious issue, and we take it very seriously. So make sure you have all of your therapeutics, medical, and dietary interventions in place. Consider to do another 24-hour EEG with your physician prior to puberty. And the third most important thing, get ready to raise the bar. Your job is to really get them ready for life. And I know you can do it.
And there was Lisa Ackerman from TACA again, and a reminder for me to tell you to come to the conference tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. Kobe Bird is speaking tomorrow. CARD is also one of the Coffee Talk sponsors, which is a very cool thing for me. So I will be there tomorrow. I will only be there in the morning. So be there or be square. And if I do have the opportunity to be live from there, I will, but I'm going to say to you, I probably won't. So there's that. So on Thursdays, we like to think of this as Mindful Thursday. Every day we want to be mindful, right? But it is like anything else that unless we make it a priority, it kind of doesn't happen, right? And my thing that I've been trying for the last year is to not put a limitation on it and say, well, it needs to be X number of minutes, but to be able to say, I have the time to do this because it's only 3 breaths. So I talk to you guys all the time about the 3 breaths. But I think that sometimes in order for us to do something and do it on a regular basis, and when I say us, I'm speaking about everybody, right? But in particular, I think there is something about, my assumption is that a large portion of my audience are parents, and even a larger segment of that is moms, because that's what our demographics tell us on a regular basis. But I do think this applies to everybody. But I think it particularly applies to females who have kiddos that are on the autism spectrum. And that is, we really aren't motivated to do things for ourselves. We're more motivated to do it for somebody else, right? That if I said to you, okay, today the thing that you need to do is X, Y, and Z for you to feel better, we'll go, oh, okay, that's good to know. And then we will leave and it's still not on the agenda, right? Anybody else raise your hand? Because I know I'm that way, and I know a lot of the people that I know are that way too. But so I want to put this out to you today, that when you take the time to be mindful, that it actually is for the people around you. That if there was one thing that I could encourage everybody to do today, that's something that's good for your kiddo, it's to have a mindfulness moment in front of them. that it's called modeling, you guys, and we know for a fact that it works. If I could count up the number of times over the last 8 years and 10 years that I've been hosting a show where people could ask questions, it's almost 11 years now, the number of times that people have said, how can I deal with anxiety that my child has, right? I mean, none of us enjoy seeing our children being anxious or stressed, right? And if there was one thing that we could do today that doesn't cost anything, that could have an immediate effect upon our kiddos now, but stretch out across their lifetime, it would be to model mindfulness. And it doesn't have to be big or long. We literally can take those 3 breaths, but do it in front of them. And it's okay to label it and say, you could be in the middle of something, right, where they see you starting to escalate, and you could say, I'm going to stop right now, and I'm going to take 3 deep breaths, right? And initially, your kiddo might be like, I don't think so. I'm going to continue screaming and yelling and whatever. But if you stop and take the 3 breaths and then open your eyes and say to them, okay, now we're going to do this, right? They will notice. They notice everything. I don't care functionality level, our kids notice. They're very keyed into us and how we feel and what's going on with us. They notice, they really do. So challenge me on that. But don't challenge me by saying, Shannon, I don't think you're right. Try it. Try it and then write back and go, yeah, no effect. But I would say to you that I think you got to do it more than once. But I even think that even once has a little bit of an impact immediately. But then if you do it on a regular basis, because that's really where we want to get our kids to, is to the point where they can manage their states. Isn't that really what we want? We want them to be able, if they're in a stressful situation, to know what to do to help themselves. We want them to be able to say, I'm upset right now, but I can take 3 breaths, and I can do that when I'm on the school bus. And I can do that when somebody is yelling at me. I can do that in all these different places because, unless you're driving, you can close your eyes and take 3 breaths. If you're driving, you can keep your eyes open and take 3 breaths, right? So model the behavior. Model the behavior and do it on a regular basis. I would tell you that it will help your child both immediately and long term. Yes, it'll also help you. And by the way, it is the oxygen mask conversation. I don't know why we all have such a hard time with this, right? But it's so hard. The idea of I have to put the oxygen mask on myself first before I can give it to my child. Ugh, right? But it's the truth. The example that I am always reminded of is the lifeguard, because lifeguards are some of the best people out there, and their whole thing is that they want to help people to stay alive. But you know what the number 1 cause of death for lifeguards is? Drowning. And it's because sometimes they forget to put the oxygen mask on first, because they will swim out, and you will see in lifeguard training, they teach people, you swim out and you try to help the person, and they will begin to struggle, and you have to let them go. And you say, I'm here to help you. I need you to stop struggling. And then if they do, you go back in and you help them and start towing them. But if they start to struggle again, you have to let them go. Because otherwise, and it's a documented, look it up, it's not me making it up, what happens is both people drown. And sometimes the surprise of, I'm letting you go, and the only way this works, the only way I can save you is if you calm down, is enough to get some people to calm down and other people can't. So my point here is we do have to take care of ourselves. If we don't have anything to give, then we can't really help our children. So we have to take care of ourselves. But I know you. You're like me, and it's hard to find the time to say, I'm going to breathe 3 times today, but I guarantee you, if you do it, you will be helping your child, okay? So that's our mindfulness moment today. Just 3 deep breaths in, 3 deep breaths. It changes the world, and it takes how long? Less than 30 seconds, right? Try it. Don't take my word for it. Try it. Okay, but while we're on this topic, I have a thing that I want to say, and if somebody has questions, we've only got a minute left. But I want to say, too, that sometimes as autism parents, we are so ready for the fight. right? Like, aren't we all tired of fighting? And there's a time and a place to fight. And I'm not saying to you to put down your knives and your pitchforks, because we both know that at some point you're going to have to go back into the fray and fight again. But I want you to notice today, who are you fighting and why? Because we don't need to have a fight with everyone. And I just have seen, there've been a lot of parents that I've talked to in the last 2 weeks who are like, I've come here because I want help, but I'm not going to change what I'm doing. And I just want us all to notice we all do that sometimes. That if you're in a place where it's not working and you're beating your head against the wall and you've come for help, you have to put down your knives and your pitchforks enough to listen. That doesn't mean you have to do it, and it doesn't mean you have to do it for the rest of your life, right? But if you've come to someone and said, what I'm doing isn't working, okay, so you gotta listen and be willing to change. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And sometimes you will think to yourself, I already tried that. Yeah, but the playing field might have been different before. Maybe you needed to do this first and now try this. There's a thing about willingness, that when willingness is there, that all kinds of things can happen. So ask yourself today, are you willing? Are you open? I'm not telling you never to fight, because a lot of times, and I'm going to be in there shoulder to shoulder with you, fighting the good fight, right? But we also have to be willing to do things differently to get to the place that we want to get. Okay, we're out of time. But thank you for being here with me. It's such a privilege. Let me tell you that on tomorrow's show, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, Megan Dolan is here. She's the Lemur Mom. Her show is the Lemur Mom. And she's here with Wendy Hammers, her director, who's amazing and fabulous. And you need to be watching us tomorrow and tune in, whether you watch us live or later, because we are going to have a thing to give away some tickets to her show, Lemur Mom, but we're going to be doing it on our Facebook page. So tune in tomorrow for deets on that. All right, I will see you then. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.